Welcome everyone to another episode of the S.O.A.P. Tonight we are talking VR. I'm Daniel and I'm joined by Aaron. Tonight we couldn't get Mike on the show. He's off doing firefighting duties, but in his place we've got Mick. Welcome to the podcast, Mick.
Thank you, Dan.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a father of 5 kids, like playing games and other nerdy type things, and just love my technology, and that's pretty about it, really.
How far back have you gone playing games?
I used to have an Amstrad back in the day.
Whoa.
I had the Atari. I used to have a keyboard with a cassette drive to load the games.
You're pretty much talking porn to Aaron right now.
Pretty much.
We may have to pause this podcast just to give him a moment.
Yeah.
Give me a chance to clean himself
I'll just
up.
mute my microphone. Yeah. It's all right. Keep talking. Keep talking.
Slowly.
Slowly.
So you started there, Mick. Where have you gone since then? Have you picked up any of the recent stuff, or...?
No, I haven't been into the scene for a while. I've let my son take all the gaming from me, so I'm not allowed to touch it, but when I have my days off, that's when I get into it.
Are you looking at buying any of the future stuff, or...?
Yeah, I'm thinking about getting into the new Destiny game. Looks pretty good, and the new Sniper Elite. Wouldn't mind giving that a go.
Yep, nice choices. What console would you be looking at? You obviously don't have one of the latest consoles.
No, I don't. I've got an Xbox One and a 360 at home.
Yep.
So whichever I can get it on that looks the best, I guess, and get time on without my son taking it off me.
So you've been in the past a bit of an Xbox gamer?
Very much, yeah. I was more of a PC gamer and then switched to Xbox when I got a laptop and they were too hard to play on.
Perfect. Well, like I said, we're talking about VR tonight. As always, we've got our resident guru, Aaron, with us to tell us all the spec details and all that. Aaron, maybe you can walk everyone through VR, what it is, where it started, and give us an example of one of the latest devices.
Yeah, cool. All right. So VR, virtual reality, has been around for probably longer than most people think. I mean, obviously now it's a bit more mainstream. We've got our newer devices, the HTC Vive or the Occulus Rift. Sony PlayStation VR is a thing now that's sort of very accessible to the masses. But I guess going right back, virtual reality is an immersive experience. So other than sitting and looking at a screen with your game on it, you actually have a helmet on, and that helmet provides the sound and 360-degree video. And it's an immersive experience, and technology is sort of now at a point where it's pretty good. But I mean, this isn't anything new. Back in the 80s, virtual reality, was spurred on by a lot of science fiction movies and writers. People like William Gibson, the writer of Neuromancer and Burning Chrome, one of the sort of leading lights in sci-fi tech. Sort of, predicting what gadgets would actually come through, had a lot to do with, talking about VR and stuff. And early on in the days, there was a machine called the Virality machine, and it was back in the late 80s, early 90s, and it had a helmet on it, and it was about the size of a rubbish bin. You stuck on your head, and it had... really, really dinky little screens in it, and it was horrible blocky wireframe graphics, and it was touted as the next big thing. That's what, in 5 years' time, everyone would be playing on is one of these things, and they were notorious for making people sick, giving them motion sickness and being, not very good to play on. But it was something that sort of shown people and got into the collective imagination, I guess, of some younger people back in the days, and they're really the pioneers of bringing through to the masses now what we have today. So it's still basically very much the same thing. You strap basically a tiny little, movie cinema to your face with some headphones on, and the device itself has some fancy trickery that can work out where your head is in space. And so when you turn your head around, you can look behind your shoulder or look up and look down and interact with the world around you and move around and play your games.
Now, we've seen this in movies quite a fair bit. I guess going back all the way to Tron being the popular one,
Yep.
giving you that idea of putting yourself in this virtual reality for it, which is quite a popular movie. Is it something that we see much today, though?
Well, look, I think it was popularized, and maybe not everyone would realize that they're sort of looking at something in the mainstream with virtual reality, and I refer to Star Trek and the holodeck. You know, that's a very nerdy thing, but a lot of people have watched Star Trek, and, you know, they program into the holodeck and they can go into, you know, 19th century England or, you know, into any fantasy world they want, and it's recreated in front of their eyes. This is our version of the holodeck, really, what we have at the moment. And I think, you know, and even for non-technical people, you know, you describe... it's a world that you put on and you're totally immersed in it. It's kind of like that when you first try one of the newer headsets. It's kind of that moment when you first picked up a Wii controller and, you know, you went bowling for the first time, and it was that light bulb moment. You went, oh, wow, that's amazing. The first time you put on, say, an Oculus Rift or a Vive, and, you know, actually someone starts it up for you and you look around and you realize that the technology is now actually catching up, that this is actually a thing.
Now, with virtual reality, I guess we should differentiate the term virtual reality from augmented reality.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Augmented reality is more overlaying information onto the real world. So a popular way to describe that's Pokemon Go.
Yep.
So everyone in the world has pretty much seen Pokemon Go, where you hold your camera up and you actually see the Pokemon in the real world. And the camera on your phone is providing the picture of the real world, and then the technology is overlaying the Pokemon into the real world. That's augmented reality. Microsoft are pushing ahead with that, with what they call the HoloLens. Now, this is actually really cool technology. It's not so much immersive into a fantasy world or into a game world. It's more about bringing information into your world. So they have videos of, you know, like 3D animators having the HoloLens on, and they're standing in a room with a lot of space, but they're doing the Minority Report thing where, you know, they'll reach out and grab something and change it and turn it in 3D space. Probably the best example of the HoloLens was their Minecraft demonstration. So they had a guy sitting in his lounge room and he fired up Minecraft for the HoloLens, and he looked at his coffee table, and, you know, the coffee table started to, you know, build up the Minecraft blocks around the coffee table, and then he could knock them down and they'd fall off the edge of the table and into water, or it was actually built around his surroundings. So they had, rather than just, you know, immerse yourself in the Minecraft world, he was actually playing Minecraft in his lounge room.
Can you imagine that the technology will merge between augmented and virtual reality to the level that you might have a pair of everyday glasses, whether they're prescriptions or just regular glasses? As you're walking around, it will detect all your things, so pop up, you know, this is a table, this is whatever, give you information on it.
Yep.
Have ads on the wall that when you look at them through this device, it'll give you more information about it, but then also be able to go into a cinema and sit down and have the movie turn into a virtual reality experience without changing technology, without doing anything different.
Maybe.
Do you imagine that that's something that we could go to in the future?
Maybe. I'm going to find it a little bit hard to work out how they'll reconciliate, that's a horrible word. Let's say consolidate the technologies into one.
Yep.
Because you had the Google Glass, right, which was basically exactly what you said. You'd walk down the street and it would show you what restaurants are nearby, and, you know, if you turn left in 100 meters, that's your directions and all of that. But it's open, like, so you can still have outside influence, so you can see the world around you. Yep. Going to the movie theater and sitting down with the augmented reality, it would only be a secondary, I think. You wouldn't have the normal prescription glasses delivering the movie to you. You might have the prescription glasses delivering some third-party information or something about the movie. I mean, like maybe, let's say Aliens or something like that. You know, the motion tracker, the beep, beep. So you'd be looking at the movie on the screen, but in your augmented reality, you'd be able to see the motion tracker floating in front of you.
Okay, well, I'm going to call it here, and I'm going to say that in the future, someone's going to create a technology where you can wear glasses that are see-through, that'll give you all that augmented reality kind of stuff, but also can turn into a full screen that will give you the virtual reality experience. So it'll be able to change somehow. The technology will allow you to change from a see-through glass material to a proper screen that will allow you to have the virtual reality. That's my prediction for the future.
Okay.
I'd like to see those glasses that turn into 3D glasses by the touch of a button, so you don't have to try to put those cardboard ones over your glasses.
They're terrible.
Wouldn't that be good?
I don't see 3D movies just because of that reason.
Yeah, it is hard when you wear prescription glasses, and funnily enough, a lot of us here on the podcast do. I don't know what the correlation there is, but anyway,
something to do with computer screens. Just a thought.
possibly.
Yeah. That's the reason I'm going with.
I want to see that technology go one step further, and the whole Ghost in the Shell shove the plug in the back of your head, and then it just comes up in front of you.
The whole Matrix scene.
Yeah, I don't think I'll live to see that, but that'd be awesome. Do away with the glasses and the hardware. Just click your head in, plug in Matrix style.
You'd never have to leave your house. Then you just stay there. And,
well, there's actually
Bruce Willis did a movie like that, didn't he?
Yeah, more or less. And there's a theory that's
Surrogates, I think it was.
Yeah, the surrogates. And he had the artificial body that did stuff for him.
Yeah, the people just stayed home, plugged into a machine, and their surrogates went around and did everything.
Yeah, there's a theory that states that 500 years in the future, aliens are going to descend on a dusty, empty, dead planet with these little boxes with one person with a wire coming out of their head inside it. And civilization won't be lived out in the real world. Everyone will just jack into a matrix, and eventually the human race will die off due to lack of interest because no one will be breeding.
Lack of interest. Lack of interest is good.
Yeah, I think the technology now, going back to your original question, Dan, will allow us to do a lot more. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was experimental tech, and it was bleeding edge back then, but we didn't have the computing power or the displays to really pull it off. The reason that it's been so long since those first early days of virtual reality is we discovered that, I touched on this before, we discovered that strapping two tiny little televisions 3 inches from a person's eyeballs actually makes them very, very motion sick. And that's hardwired into us. It's not just, I don't ever get sick, don't get motion sick. You will get crook if you shove one of these things on your head if it's not configured properly. So we often talk about in gaming about that 25 frames per second minimum cap that the eye can see. Virtual reality wants to run at around 90 frames a second, just to make sure that your eye is getting enough input and it's not jagging or lagging in your brain to make you feel motion sick. It's got to do that on 2 screens, not just one. So everyone at home games on a single screen. So all of your graphical power is going to one screen, usually of high definition resolution of 1080p. These new virtual reality gaming headsets have 2 tiny little 1080p screens inside them, running at an average of 80 to 90 frames a second to avoid the motion sickness that the earlier technology was giving people. It still means that you do have to have a lot of hardware, a lot of fast hardware to run these newer systems like the Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive. Even the PlayStation VR comes with an external GPU booster. It actually has a second box that's got to plug into the PlayStation 4, which gives it another graphical boost to allow it to get that quality. And the PlayStation VR is a slightly lower quality. It's actually at 1200 by 720p, I believe it is. It's not full high def, but it's still good enough. And I think as our computers get better, the VR technology will get better, will get cheaper, and we will see more of it. And I really think that this is now a great time for us to be gamers because, it's only going to get better.
Definitely. Well, let's have a look at some of the current VR materials that are out there. Let's go back to one of the more basic ones and start with the Google Cardboard. I believe you have some experience with that.
Yeah, I got a Google Cardboard quite a while ago. It's such a novelty. Google had this kit, you know, for a couple of bucks. You could get Google to send you a cardboard thing that you folded up and shoved your phone inside. And, you know, you could do some immersive VR stuff. I mean, it wasn't, you know, full on gaming. It was more, you know, you could watch 360-degree videos, or there's a roller coaster simulator, and you know, you'd go up and down and around, and you could look around on the roller coaster. And basically, yeah, it was just a piece of cardboard you folded up and slotted a phone into the front of, and then with the appropriate app, you could do a few things. And it I think it was almost a joke, and then it really picked up. And everyone just went, this is really actually kind of cool.
Did it originally come with the lenses?
Yes. Yeah, it was pretty well thought out. Obviously, it's a Google product. They don't, do things by halves. So it had little lenses that helped you focus your eyes onto the phone screen, and the app split the screen of the phone in half, and you'd have these little, you know, experiences. I wouldn't call them games. I'd call them experiences. I think the first thing I watched was, remember when that French guy jumped from the balloon at the top of the atmosphere?
The highest ever free fall.
Yeah, he actually had a 360-degree camera strapped to him when he did that.
Wow.
And that was one of the things that Google Cardboard first promoted, so you could watch him fall. And it was pretty spectacular.
Could you watch him land as well?
I can't actually remember now, to tell you the truth. I think it cut out when he sort of got close to land. In case, you know, he didn't make it, but no, it was all okay.
I'm pretty impressed that it stood up to the pressures of the velocity.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the camera equipment he had, when that was a few years ago, it wouldn't have been like these little 360-degree cams you have now. It was probably 4 or 5 GoPros strapped together, and then the video would have been stitched together that way. But
could have had a Street View car up there.
They've been everywhere else, really, haven't they? So,
just about.
You know. So that was a beginning of actually taking the tech that we have.
What was the actual technical specs for that one?
It was whatever phone you shoved in it. So the Google Cardboard had no technical specs. It was basically just a thing you strapped to your face.
It was literally cardboard and lenses.
It was cardboard and lenses, that's right. So it took your phone and used your phone. At the time, it was iPhone 5S was the spec that it was running on, or the Galaxy 5, 6, something around that. So it had no inherent tech built into it itself, and that was the beauty of it. It was only a couple of dollars, and you could order it from Google. They gave away like 1 million of them. Then you got the app, and the app did all the heavy lifting. So you'd put your phone into the Google Cardboard, and then you'd fire up the app, and away you'd go. And it, as I said, it actually took the screen of your phone and split it down the middle. And the way it worked was that the cardboard was cut into a shape, like Mike said, that it had the right focal length. It had lenses that allowed your eyes to focus on the screen, because if you ever hold your phone right up close to your face, it actually blurs out. You can't really see it. So it had that sorted out, and then it had the fancy origami kind of way to fold it up into a box so it would actually work on your face. With the Android phones, it had a magnet as well that worked in conjunction with some Android phones, and you could use the magnet that actually sat on the side of the Google Glass, and you could use it like a switch or like a button to do things. iPhone owners didn't have that because we didn't get NFC or magnetic capacitance until the iPhone 6. So we kind of were stuck of doing something in the app, taking the phone out, pressing the screen, putting the phone back in. But it was never really designed for the iPhone. There was actually a lot of hack apps that came out first before the official Google Cardboard app. But
I suppose Google don't want to make one for iPhone.
Well, no, that's right. They've got their own sort of Android operating system and Android phones. But it was the ultimate in low tech. And then that evolved over the past couple of years into the Google Daydream, which I believe Mick's got, which is a little bit more fancy.
I believe I even saw Mick playing it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I haven't played it for a while, so I had to go through the tutorial again. And the tutorial has different ways to teach you how to use the remote control that comes with it, including throwing a stick for an Arctic wolf and lobbing coconuts from a coconut tree into a rowboat. So it is a lot of fun though, but yeah, you do need to get on there and find the right apps for everything. And they're a little bit hard to find because you need to go into the actual Play Store to get them. And I find the regular Cardboard app, they don't work as well as the Daydream ones, but they don't specify in the App Store which one's which.
So how do you find a VR game on the Google Play? Do you have to know what you're looking for, or is there a VR section?
If you go through the Daydream app on your phone, you can actually find its own library in there which links you back to the Play Store.
Right.
But if you go to the Play Store itself and look, anything with a little image of a cardboard or the Google Cardboard on it is compatible with the Cardboard and with Daydream as well, but may not work with the remote.
So is there a Daydream symbol as well, or?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a matter of just reading through the extra bits and pieces and finding out, or trial and error.
Right.
But you were saying that the Daydream comes with its own dedicated remote as well.
That's correct, yeah. Bluetooth remote.
Okay.
Has 3 buttons on it, and the top button it's a button, and it's also a directional slider, so you can slide left, right, up, down.
Oh yeah, like D-pad kind of.
Yeah,
yep.
Exactly right. If you press and hold it and then swing it, it actually throws the stick for the wolf, or it pulls a slingshot back. But I've actually downloaded a go-kart game on my phone here to play with, and I'm just having a look to see if it's on there, but it's timed out, so I just got to wait for it to reload.
Well, while you're waiting for that, tell us a bit more about the remote. So you've got the button for the directional thing, then what's the middle button for?
So the middle button, I'm not 100% certain of because I haven't used it. Down the bottom, the very lower button is the home button. So if you press and hold that, it will recenter your VR no matter where you're looking. So if you stop what you're doing and then get up again and move around, you can press and hold that and it will recenter you.
Right, so if you get up and then you sit in a different location, obviously you're going to be looking at a different spot.
Exactly
so
right.
That's going to allow you to center it back to where you would have been sitting originally.
That's exactly right. And also on the side are volume controls. So you don't have to touch anything on the Google headset itself. Once you put the Daydream on, everything's done through the remote or through movement. Some games are movement controlled. Other games are remote controlled.
Okay. And how would you say that the headset itself feels? Obviously, it's got to be a little bit better than the Cardboard one. Would you, like, it, from what I've seen, it's a pretty decent quality build for it?
It is. It's very light. It's all cloth. One of the other companies put one out that was a little bit harder and a bit more plasticky and wasn't very comfortable. The only thing I find with all of these is because I wear glasses, my glasses tend to fog up a little bit from time to time.
And so it gets a bit warm inside the lens, does it? Or?
It certainly does. The phone itself warms up quite a lot, but when you first get it in the manual, it does say your phone will get quite warm when playing, and that's perfectly normal. But it's because of the graphics involved. It's very resource hungry.
Yep.
And now these have a strap, kind of like a bagged kind of strap, that you seem to be able to adjust and get to the right length.
Yeah,
is it
exactly right. So
is it elastic or just?
It is elastic. You put it on your head. You adjust the buckle to reach the right part of your head so it's comfortable, and then you don't have to touch it again.
The Google Cardboard had none of that. You had to hold it on your face. It's very low tech.
You'd probably have to build your own little strap for it, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. The type of people that first got the Google Cardboard would be the type to make a strap. Absolutely.
Bit of duct tape never goes astray.
No, that's right.
Do you know if anyone took the Cardboard kits and made their own kind of actual headsets out of it?
I don't know, actually. I mean, there was plenty of knockoffs. You didn't have to get your Google Cardboard from Google. There was any number of, cheap Chinese Google cardboards or...
Google?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a Despicable Me type version.
Because it's basically just a knockoff version. I guess it's the same basic principle as, your Samsung Gear VRs and the cheaper, plasticky ones that you can get to shove your phone in. Often seen in, like, what would you say, like discount stores, the VR box headsets. They're sort of basically just a version of a Google Cardboard.
Okay.
Google didn't patent or copyright the Cardboard in any way. They just said, here, use this, and everyone just ran with it. So
Google's a very open license company, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like open source software. They basically open sourced the Cardboard headset and said, if you want to make one, go ahead. And they're all basically the same theory.
The Cardboard came out in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
The Daydream's obviously a lot newer. It only came out at the end of 2016 for it. So we seem to be seeing quite a quick advancement in this kind of technology at the moment. I guess we're probably already looking towards the future of the next one for it. Google seem to be one of those companies that are always looking for the next step with it. And I guess as the Android phones keep releasing new ones, that's going to give us a lot more power with it. Aaron, have you had a look at the tech specs for the Daydream stuff?
No, I haven't actually. Again, it would be, your Samsung S7, S8, however powerful those guys are, or iPhone 6 or 7. Obviously,
I know that the Daydream was originally released to coincide with the Pixel release.
Yeah.
So they built the Daydream mainly for the Pixel and then all the other Androids to catch up.
Well, the Pixel's a fairly beefy phone. It's got some pretty good specs, like octa-core processor, a shitload of RAM, and good graphics abilities. So while it may not be pushing full 1080p at 90 frames a second in each eye, it would be going okay. And look, most of the apps for the Google Cardboard or Daydream still aren't photorealistic. They're probably a little bit simplistic still. As opposed to your Oculus Rift and your Vive, who are going more for the photorealistic style. But like you said, Dan, as Android phones get more and more powerful, the iterations of the Google Cardboard or Daydream or whatever their next headset will be, will take that step with the phones. And we all know that each passing year our phones get more powerful. More and more powerful, like Apple's just released a phone that costs more than a gaming desktop. So,
twice as much.
Well, yeah.
Well, with that, I mean, one of the more popular of the VR things has been the HTC Vive, I believe it is, which I think you've actually had a bit of experience with, Aaron. Is that the most powerful one? Is that the one to go for, or?
Well, it's a much of a muchness. The HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift. I mean, Oculus Rift's been around for ages. But it stayed in development for many, many years, and now you could buy yourself an Oculus Rift. You just had to tell them you were a developer, and you didn't have to develop anything. They'd take your money and sell you a headset as quick as look at you. And the Oculus Rift went through many, many different iterations. The final Oculus Rift that was released before the public release, so the last developer kit, actually used the screen out of a Samsung Galaxy Note. It was they gutted the notes for the screens because the screens were big, bright, and had a high resolution. That's what they were used for. However, with the Vive, it sort of came out of left field, and it's made by a company called HTC, who are more familiar to us as a mobile phone maker. However, HTC did actually get endorsed by Valve, and so the HTC Vive is the preferred virtual reality headset of Steam, which doesn't hurt its market share. Oculus Rift is the one that's been around for the longest and probably was the most known of the two, but the HTC Vive came along and all of a sudden Lord Gaben went, that's the one for us, and it just jumped into the market. Both of them weigh in at over $1,000 Australian. They are not cheap by any means. However, in the grand scheme of things, they're not overly expensive either.
Are they easy to get your hands on, or?
Oh yeah, pretty much. I mean, you can get Oculus Rifts and Vives from multiple sellers in Australia, or online and in store. I believe EB Games stock the HTC Vive. I'm not sure if they stock the Oculus Rift, and probably not all stores stock them because they are such a high ticket item, rolling out at about $1,100. The thing you've got to consider though is this is just the headset. It does not include the computer hardware to drive it. So you do need a PC capable of driving the headsets, regardless of whether it's a Oculus Rift or a HTC Vive. The minimum recommended spec is, i7 processors, graphics cards with at least 6 gig of onboard memory, which would sort of put you into the NVIDIA 970, 980 Ti, 1060, 1070, 1080 Ti's. Not a cheap graphics card, not a cheap PC gaming rig. Your rig that you use to play a bit of StarCraft and a little bit of WoW and do some spreadsheets and stuff on is not going to drive an Oculus Rift or a HTC Vive.
So what kind of games can we expect to see with the HTC Vive?
All right, so, a lot of what's out there at the moment are experiences or shorter games. So what I actually played, I played a sampler. So there was a lot of different little levels and things. One of my favorite ones was the Star Wars lightsaber training / fight off the stormtroopers game. So basically you're a unknown Jedi, unnamed, and the Millennium Falcon lands next to you, but there's something buggered up, and you've got to swing your controller around, which in your world looks like a lightsaber, and it's like ving ving. It's amazing, and defend the Millennium Falcon while you have an astro droid, and you've got to repair something, and then the Millennium Falcon flies away, and the stormtroopers come and shoot at you and deflect the laser beam. So it's a first-person experience that goes for about 10 minutes. What else did I play? I played Serious Sam VR, which is, if anyone's ever played Serious Sam back in the day, it's it's very similar to your Duke Nukem 3Ds or Quakes, of a first-person running around Egyptian mazes and shooting things. The graphics were quite good. I was able to play it for quite a while, although my face did get sweaty. I do wear glasses.
One of the things you mentioned there was the controller. Is that similar to the Daydream with it, or what kind of controller do they have for it?
No. They're more like a Wiimote, but on steroids. So the HTC Vive is 2 pistol grips. And they're motion tracked, so you can see your hands inside the game, and if you rotate or tilt your hands, your avatar's hands will rotate and tilt as well. They've got obviously lots of triggers, lots of buttons, and an analog stick. The analog stick is often used for movement. Movement is probably what I would say is the biggest issue with VR at the moment. And that's what actually sets the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift apart. The HTC Vive comes with room tracking technology. So basically you put up some little sensors in the corner of your room, and you calibrate how big your living room or your gaming space is, and you can tell the Vive how far you can walk. And if you walk towards a wall, what will happen is a green wireframe will overlay itself in game to tell you that you're getting close to a wall and to stop walking that way.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, now I don't believe the Oculus Rift comes with that as standard. I'm pretty sure there are kits you can get to add on, so you don't bash your head into doors and walls and knock everything off the shelves while you're playing your game. But that's so where I think improvement is needed. In game, it's you can't run down a corridor if you've only got 4 or 5 paces left to ride around you. So you actually have to use an analog stick or a button to move yourself into the game, which breaks a little bit of the immersion in my eyes.
In saying that, there is the people who have made like a treadmill style kind of thing where you can use the VR headset and you stand on it and you walk, and because it's like a treadmill, you're still in the same spot, but it gives you the illusion of actually moving in the game, and it feeds back through to the game to let the game know that you're moving. So that's something that in the future, I don't know if that's going to be like in the arcade centers or something like that, because it's not going to be a very practical thing for at home. No. You don't want to set a big treadmill up in the middle of your lounge room or that.
Well, some people would.
So where that technology can go.
Look, absolutely. And I think that is where the technology needs to improve, obviously.
I've seen versions of that actually.
Yeah.
Like a big ball, a big cage ball.
Yep.
And it rotates around as you walk, and so you can go any direction.
Yeah, and you can run and you can, That's right. And I think that, like Dan said, that will be more for your movie theaters, in the foyer where all the games are, or arcades, or, special shows or something like that. But you're right, you wouldn't have one of those in your lounge room.
Like the arcade dance machine?
Yeah, oh, well, no, you wouldn't.
I don't need a dance machine.
I wouldn't anyway. It couldn't handle my moves, it'd just explode. Anyway, back on track. So movement is one of the things, and Doom VFR now is one of the larger titles, which is less of an experience and more of a game. So it's basically the Bethesda release of Doom, but in VR. It looks amazing, but the way you move is you've got you use the analog stick and you highlight a tile almost in front of you, and then you push and you teleport almost to that space.
It's like a Street View experience.
Yeah, almost. I really wonder how that will work with, the fast-paced run and gun of Doom. I haven't actually had a chance to play Doom in VR, but so movement's a thing. The other thing with the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive both is that they have a massive umbilical cord. So you've got this big fat cord that almost looks like a garden hose. That's how thick it is, that comes out of the back of the headset and it snakes off into your PC. Now, you can't see that when you've got the headset on. So trip hazard. Again, often when you're playing one of these things, you'll be with a mate or something, so they'll be like watching the screen on your PC, what you're doing, but they'll be holding the umbilical cord. Yeah. And I know that's how it worked when I played it.
Be holding it in front of you, waiting for you to trip over it.
Yeah, if you've got those sort of friends, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do.
But Linus of Linus Tech Tips actually did a video on that, and he modded an Oculus Rift, I think it was, to have just one tiny little USB cable running to it, but it was a big hack, and lots and lots of expensive equipment to make it happen, and he had to have a backpack on. So again, we're at the start of the technology. It's got a lot of things that it could do. So to lighten up the technology, make the umbilical cable less obtrusive, make movement more natural. But for experiences where you're static and just looking around, I mean, the PlayStation VR, I played Drive Club, and I actually sat in a racing seat with the steering wheel and the pedals. That was amazing because you don't need to have movement. The movement is produced by the game, and you can look around the cockpit of the car, or you can turn your head and look over your shoulder out the back window while you're driving. And the first time you play it, the experience is so immersive that it actually fools your inner ear. So when you put your foot down and go around a corner sideways in the game, it actually feels like you're doing it. Your body is getting this input, and your inner ear compensates, and you actually feel like you're driving a car, and you get that feeling of speed. Stuff like that, simulation, I think, is going to be really, really good. Doom type games or run and gun games, maybe not so much, but definitely your flight sims or your racing games are there now. There's not much more needed for those guys.
Do you think that that's something where we'll use that technology to actually simulate driving lessons, flying lessons, that kind of stuff?
I think so, and I think the technology's there to do it. If you look at flight simulation now, your X-Plane and Flight Sim X and stuff on the PC, they use those sort of things now for training. You can actually certify. My dad does a fair bit of flight simulating. You can actually certify and get hours up by flying on a particular simulator with a particular set of equipment and loadouts and programs. So that's there. There's no mucking around that really needs to do except for sticking the headset on, sitting in a chair, and getting a flight stick and a throttle, and away you go. I think that's going to be great for training. Absolutely.
They are starting to use some of these things in some universities for med students and things like that, so they can practice on a non-real body, on where to make cuts and things, using virtual reality and augmented reality.
Yeah.
Do you reckon we're mature enough to use like VR on like operating things and that? I just imagine that someone's there, obviously not taking it so seriously and just like, oh, I wonder if I cut that off.
I think I'd be having a lot of fun and it would have nothing to do with surgery.
Or you'd be like, oh, if I cut off this bit, do I get an achievement? You know, ding, achievement achieved. Patient is dead.
This many points on your gamer tag.
On your doctor tag. You've been disbarred. It is actually being used a little bit for telepresence. So they have a machine called a Da Vinci, I think it's called, which is a massive, big robot surgeon. And you can put someone in this big robot surgeon thing, and you can have a surgeon in another town, another country, another wherever, and he can actually use the machine to do complex surgery. So it's often used for microsurgery and brain surgery, where there's not that many doctors in the world that can do it, but they can actually strap themselves into a big telepresence machine and use it. So it's already started to be used.
But what happens if your internet goes down during that? Are you going to just lag out and...
It's a little bit scary when you think about it.
If anything goes wrong, your ISP will give you a month of, plan fees for nothing. So that'd be fine. What's there to worry about? Patient's dead, but hey, we don't have to pay for the internet. But I think it's going to be... I think it's going to be much more ubiquitous. And, gaming and gamers, and we often, are on the bleeding edge of tech because that's what we do, and it filters into other walks of life, and, it gets used. How the Wii got so many people that didn't ever play games playing games, and, they had Wiis in nursing homes with dementia patients, and they were bringing them out of their shell by playing games on the Wii and things like that.
Sitting around playing tennis and things.
Yeah, exactly right. I think that's going to continue. And, the want and the need to have these games as they get better is going to drive more innovation. It's going to make the units more efficient, smaller, and cheaper. And I think we will get to a point of critical mass where everyone will have a VR headset.
At the same time, though, there are still people like myself that just want to be able to sit back in an armchair with a controller in their hands, just playing a game.
It's not a game you're playing with, mate.
Wrong joystick, but...
I think that's got its place as well, Mick. Absolutely. I'm trying to keep it above the belt here.
He's not.
I think that has
Story of my life.
I think that has its place as well. I don't think he'll ever completely replace the traditional 2D gaming format. But I think to augment your gaming, if you want to strap on a headset, I mean, there's a Batman game, and it's brilliant. It's only very short, but you actually are Batman, and you look down, and you've got, the gloves with the blades on them, and you can put your hand to your waist and you pull out a batarang and you throw it at dudes. Like, it's a nerdgasm right there, and I admit that I did when I played it, because everyone knows how much I love Batman. And
anything Batman's awesome, so...
Absolutely. So I think there's always going to be that. And I mean, the other cool thing you can do with a virtual reality headset is you can have a simulated screen. So if you don't have enough room in your house for a big, 60 or 70 inch telly, you can have a VR headset and put it on and have a simulated 130 inch television in front of you as well.
You can watch your movies through it as well.
And you're not bothering anyone else. You don't have, the movies blaring. You've got your headphones in, you've got your headset on. You're just watching a movie, but it's like you're at the IMAX.
Definitely.
So there's a lot of different applications.
The one thing I'd like to say is that the PlayStation VR, whilst it's probably not the most powerful out of all of them, it's bringing it a lot to the mainstream, where people knew that, with your mobile phone, you might get a headset or that, and they're like, oh, I don't really know about this or that kind of stuff. With the PlayStation, it's already designed for games, and they're marketing it heavily for it. So you know exactly what you're getting, and they're doing a lot of advertising with it. In saying that, it's also bringing games to a whole new level of VR. The mobile phone ones and that are often very small and, you know, they're gimmicky and that with it.
Very power hungry.
In saying that, the PlayStation also has a lot of those games available on there. That's what the technology is for. But the PlayStation feels like it's actually trying to bring proper AAA quality games to the VR.
Yes.
We've seen Until Dawn. The people who make that have had one VR game already, and they now have The Inpatient coming out very soon. So with the PlayStation, I feel like it's going to take the gaming side of that to the next level. It may not be the most powerful, it may not be the best VR for it, but it's the one that's going to push everything along.
And it's going to work. It's not like you go and buy an Oculus Rift and then you've got to upgrade your PC, you've got to download this driver, you've got to download that program, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. The PlayStation VR, you pull it out of the box, you plug it in, turn it on, and it works.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about PlayStation is that everything that comes out on a PlayStation is designed for the PlayStation, and that's going to give you the quality for it.
Yeah.
With a lot of the other ones, especially like the Android ones, there's so many versions of Androids and so many versions of phones. It's very hard for developers to make everything completely compatible with everything, and that's where you pick up a device, and if yours isn't, you know, the top level one, yours may not work so perfectly with that kind of technology. Whereas with the PlayStation, it may not be the most powerful, but everyone knows exactly what specs are.
Yeah.
And it feels a lot like Apple do with their phones.
Yeah.
Whilst the Android system has so much more potential and can do so many more things, because it's spread across all the different phones, the different operating systems and all that kind of stuff, so much can go wrong with it as well. And you really need to stay on top of it. Apple is really good because they know all their products. They know the backwards compatibility. They know everything to do with their devices. And so when they release something, it's compatible with everything, barring something that's, you know, 5 years plus old or that kind of stuff.
It's the same with Sony. Apple and Sony, they do what they say on the box.
Yep.
That's what they do. And it's mainstream. And you're absolutely right, you know. Having this open source stuff and you know, little tweaks here and little tweaks there, yeah, that's great if you're a power user. But if you're the average Joe off the street and all you want to do is sit in your racing frame and race cars with a headset on, then you're not going to spend $1,000+ on an Oculus Rift. You're then not going to spend another $1,200 on a graphics card to run it and hope that your PC doesn't overheat. Then you've got to upgrade the cooling in your PC. Then you've got to get a new copy of Windows. You've got to get the drivers for the bloody thing.
Exactly.
You're going to go and buy a PlayStation VR with Drive Club or Gran Turismo, and you're going to walk home, and within half an hour, you're going to be driving. And you're right, it may not be the best experience, but it will be the best experience that Sony can give you.
It's the most accessible experience you'll get.
Exactly right, exactly right.
The one thing that I'd like to see with this kind of technology, and there's a lot of debate within certain circles in regards to gaming with a disability. You already mentioned about the Wii and bringing that to nursing homes and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
People with disabilities obviously have a unique set of challenges, and it limits their ability to do a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for a lot of them, they can't get out. They can't do a lot of these things. With the VR technology in the future, we have the potential to give people with disabilities, so that can't access certain locations and that kind of stuff, the ability to virtually access these locations and give them a whole new experience that they're normally, you know, unable to reach or that kind of stuff. If you're in a wheelchair, exactly right, you're not going to be rock climbing and going, you know, the top of Mount Everest. But with VR, you're going to see them be able to do all these kind of activities and not, you know, it's going to give them a whole new lease on life.
Absolutely.
It's like a hollow deck for people that are a bit less physically able to get there.
Yeah. And, you know, again, you shove a headset on someone and then do a 3D Skype call into your family who are a million miles away. And all of a sudden you're in the lounge room with them. Or you're climbing Mount Everest, as you said. It's not just for games. Like this, the virtual reality.
It's the closest thing to teleportation you'll get.
Absolutely. You know, think about people like Stephen Hawking's a great example because he, with his ALS, his motor neurons disease, basically all he can do now is move his mouth, his eyebrows, and one of his thumbs. You put a headset on Stephen Hawking and give him a controller that's, you know, worked out for his thumb, and he could virtually walk around, go to the space station. You could do anything as long as, you know, the camera's there and the immersion's ready for him. And you're absolutely right. It's not just going to be for games. I think this is going to be much more not invasive. That's a horrible word. Much more all right, much more invasive. Let's just go with that.
Wrong sort of medical operation, that one.
That's the other thing VR's good for. No,
Only in Japan.
Yeah, okay, let's run with that. I'm good with that. Yep, cool. Where was I?
I don't want to know where you were, but
in saying that, I guess the issue with talking about the disabilities and all that kind of stuff still is that at the moment we already have a large call for assistance with the disability community and that kind of stuff. Carers are asking for a lot more access to the software and technology, the developer kits, that kind of stuff, to be able to create these kind of solutions for people.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to be aware, and we need to be lobbying these kind of people that are making this technology, going, this is great that you're creating it for all these things, but don't forget these other potential outlets and that. And it just needs one person to become, on that bandwagon to make it the norm.
Yeah, like Elon Musk or someone like that to just say, this is what we're going to do.
Exactly. And as soon as that becomes a mainstream thing, that someone releases these kits that people can then customize for disabilities or that, specifically with that purpose, with that marketing, that other people making this technology will then also make theirs compatible with it. So we see it with wheelchairs and that at the moment. A lot of people are calling for the technology to turn wheelchairs into a controller. We need that with the VR stuff as well.
Absolutely, and you use the joystick on your wheelchair to control your VR experience.
Exactly.
I can't see why not. It's a directional button or an analog stick, exactly the same as on a DualShock controller. It's no different.
That's it.
So surely the software's out there, and the interface. That's what it is, isn't it? It's getting someone to interface everything together. So this is a viable prospect.
Yep.
I mean, you could almost imagine. If you've ever visited an elderly relative in a nursing home and you see all of the old people sitting in a common room and you've got one like television on and they're just sitting there, some might be knitting, some is staring out the window, they're just like, meh, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Imagine if every one of those guys, those people guys, had a VR headset on and they were, reliving the streets of their hometown when they were a child, or they were visiting Venice or something like that virtually.
Makes me think of a Futurama episode when the grandparents were in their coffin. The battery, they were being used as batteries, but they were in a virtual world, just like a Matrix.
Yep.
Fantastic episode.
Yep. And there's a lot of theories that says we're already living in the Matrix as well.
There are.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for VR. And it stalled earlier on in the 80s and 90s because the technology wasn't there. The technology's here now, and it just takes, it'll just take a little bit more work and a little bit more innovation. And I think VR will really, in the next 10 years, come into its own, come of age. I mean, I think augmented reality will as well, and I think that's going to be something. Maybe to augment VR. I know that's a terrible pun, but I don't think it'll replace it. I don't think one will replace the other. I think we'll have both.
They'll complement each other.
Yeah, exactly right. I think when you go outside, you put your sunglasses on, and your sunglasses have got the heads-up display over them and tells you, how far down the road an ATM is, or where your nearest restaurant is, or even if your friend of yours is out walking the streets, you could tag them and see where they are.
Brand new Google Glass.
Yeah, well, Google kind of balls that up. One of their few failures, really, Google Glass.
I think The Simpsons did it pretty well, though.
I don't think I saw that episode.
Where Burns gave everyone a pair of those glasses so he could keep an eye on them.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got to realise now that in the connected world, nothing's secret and everything you do is online now.
Yeah.
All hail Google Home, my new overlord, which is over in the corner listening.
Yes. I have one too, and I'm sure it listens all the time.
It does.
It's going to need psychiatric therapy after a while.
Well, that's what I said. I said to my partner, I said, well, if they want to listen to what we're talking about, then that's their problem, not mine.
They're the ones that are going to need therapy.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is no one can sit there and listen to every person's conversation. Like, sure, if you're the target of something, then yes, someone could, potentially hack in all that. But the government of that isn't going to sit there going, yep, we have, 10 billion people living here. We're going to listen to every single conversation they have,
But they need 10 billion people to do the listening.
Exactly.
Oh, well, then you could keep everyone employed, I guess. And have half the people listening to the other half of the people. And then they've got their money to buy their fancy graphics cards to run their Oculus Rift.
That's right.
So it's all good. If Oculus or HTC Vive are listening and want to send us a review model, please get in touch via our Facebook page, because I'm sure we'd love to do a review of a HTC Vive or a Oculus Rift even.
Definitely.
Shameless plug.
Well, on that note, I guess we might just wrap this up. We've covered quite a fair bit. We've talked a lot about the Google with both the Cardboard and the Daydream. We've had the HTC Vive, the Sony PlayStation VR, and obviously Oculus being the big name always thrown around with VR technology. So personally, I'd like to thank Mick for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Pleasure to have you.
As always, for our listeners, make sure you like and subscribe. You'll find us on Facebook, YouTube, listen to our audio through SoundCloud, and always we're on iTunes. The Google Store, we're still working out. Hopefully in the near future, we will be on Google Play so that you can listen to us there. But in the meantime, grab us on SoundCloud or YouTube. Should be accessible on your Android devices. Well, I'm Daniel. This is another episode of the S.O.A.P. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. We'll see you again next week, and just be thankful that this is only a audio 2D podcast and not the full virtual reality copy, because no one needs to see that.
No.